Some matches have the wonderful honour of being remembered as wrestling classics. Shawn vs Razor at Mania 10, Bret vs Austin from Mania 13, Repo Man versus anybody he ever fought. There are certain bouts that get this honour and it never goes away, and that's awesome. They are encounters you should go out of your way to see. On the flip side to this though are a whole bunch of excellent brawls that don't get what they deserve at all. In fact, some of them are straight up ignored. Forget the fact they're pro wrestling done right, they've been lost to the annals of history. Until now. I'm Simon from WhatCulture, and this is the 10 classic WWE matches that no one remembers as a classic. Number 10, Roman Reigns vs Daniel Bryan. Going down at Fastlane 2015, this stands out for many reasons, and the main one is that it's where we all should have started going, wait a minute, Roman Reigns is actually quite a good wrestler. Now, it certainly didn't hurt that he was in the ring with Daniel Bryan, a master of the sport, but still, this 20-minute plus thriller was a gripping, dynamic, big match that had the added stipulation that the winner was going to the WrestleMania main event. That's a lot of boxes ticked right there. WWE also booked it smartly too, playing into the strength of Reigns and the wiliness of Bryan, and the two just had a natural chemistry that was obvious from the off. It built wonderfully as well, with the big moves coming out towards the end, and the top rope powerbomb delivered by Roman onto the Yes Man was ludicrous. Throwing that the crowd was super into this, and you have a modern day match that WWE should throw in people's faces a lot more. It's fantastic. Number 9, Kurt Angle vs Rey Mysterio. It could be because both men had awesome matches throughout their careers, but when Angle and Mysterio went at it at SummerSlam 2002, well, it was amazing. Obviously, it's like saying ice cream tastes good. You don't need me telling you that. Of course ice cream tastes good. The real joy here is that Rey and Kurt were able to make a mere 10-minute fight feel like the most epic thing you'd ever seen in your life. And the speed and intensity of the whole thing is mad. Angle soon got the upper hand, which almost allowed the pair to play a cat and mouse game with each other, and everything they were doing was so over the top, without using any weapons or the usual wrestling tropes, that those in attendance that night started to chant holy shit. This was athleticism at its finest. It got so fast towards the end, not even the commentators could keep up, and the finish, where Angle snatched Rey's foot in midair after a top rope Hurricane Rana attempt, well, think about the words that just came out of my mouth just then. Incredible. Number 8, The Miz vs Kevin Owens vs Sami Zayn vs Cesaro. I don't think anyone even remembers this, let alone that it was a classic, but at Extreme Rules 2016, 4 men went out there and they stole the damn show. You knew something was going to go down when it started with Sami Zayn rushing across the ring to smash Kevin Owens in the face with a haluva kick. And that was it. It was go time. Cesaro and The Miz just did the same, and it carried forward with jaw-dropping spots and well thought out multi-man sequences. Anytime someone had the upper hand, someone else would appear from nowhere to balance it out, and it was a joy to watch and try and keep up with. It was just top-class action. Somewhat amazingly, it may have even been The Miz who was the MVP. Understanding his role as the heel, he constantly slowed down the match, which just pissed the fans off even more, meaning when he got his ass kicked, it was satisfying. In short, go and watch this right now. Number 7, Shawn Michaels vs Jeff Jarrett. Yep, you heard that right. Happening at In Your House 2 of all places, it may have been Jeff Jarrett's finest match of his career, and yet more evidence that Shawn Michaels is one of the best of all time. Competing over the IC title in 1995, both men showed they were smooth as silk and pretty damn agile. Jarrett and Michaels also told a fine story here too, with Jeff being the frustrated heel and HBK the super talented babyface. Michaels even outwitted Jarrett's manager, the Roadie, before super kicking Jeff for the win. It may not ever be on your top 10 list, but it's definitely a match you should go back and check out. You'll be surprised. Number 6, Edge vs Eddie Guerrero. You don't have to be on pay-per-view to have a forgotten classic match, and this war from Eddie and Edge on a SmackDown in 2002 was just wonderful. Going a nuts 19 minutes, which is always a treat for a TV event, it was the emerging of Edge as a main event talent, and yet more evidence that Eddie Guerrero was a hero among men. Going tit for tat with each other for the entire length of the match, it also features a brutal first face ladder shot to the referee and a ladder assisted sunset flip powerbomb. It was already firing on all cylinders, but all this allowed it to take a huge step up. It even finished with Edge hitting an execution from the top of the ladder, and while he won, there were no losers this night. It's too good. Number 5, Goldberg vs Brock Lesnar. Right, I mean this. Lesnar Goldberg at WrestleMania 33 was perfect in terms of what I expected from these two beasts. It literally could not have been better. Quick, intense, hard-hitting, surprising, and most importantly fun. The two basically just ran around for 6 minutes while still finding the time to make sure Goldberg crashed Lesnar through the barricade. And we saw Brock leapfrog a spear. What else do you want? All we needed to see was the hits here, and that's what we got. It was like a classic rock band running through their greatest songs. Everyone loved it, I loved it, you loved it, and I could watch it over and over again with no remorse. Sometimes it's just about the action, and this was full of it. Number 4, Bret Hart vs Jean-Pierre Lafitte. While I can't pronounce that man's name correctly, no one talks about In Your House 3, and for good reason. Why would you? There's loads of better things to do. However, you should still find time to watch Bret Hart versus this guy, as dumb as that sounds. It gets dumber too, because this was happening due to Pierre stealing Bret Hart's sunglasses. So it's not like this was a serious match, but once it got going, the opposite rang true. For one, Bret threw out a crazy suicide dive before the bell even rang, only for Jean to get the upper hand and absolutely brutalise Hart for a while. And I mean, he kicked the crap out of him, including hurling Bret shoulder first into the ring post. This wasn't even the end of it, as there were dives, moves over the top rope, and the inclusion of the ring steps. And you'd never have guessed this was about nicking some glasses. It's a mystery why Pierre wasn't a bigger star after this. Probably could have been. Number 3, Kota Ibushi vs Brian Kendrick. From the well-remembered Cruiserweight Classic, everything was in place for when Ibushi stood toe-to-toe with Kendrick. For one, the man with a plan had a fantastic story at the time, playing a guy who saw this tournament as his last shot at stardom. Then there was Kota Ibushi, who was the hottest free agent in wrestling, and for good reason. He's brilliant. And finally, there was the match itself. Somehow allowed to try and kill each other within a WWE ring, we even saw a burning hammer, which is surely the last time that'll ever happen. Everything here was just incredibly invented and off the wall, and the realism brought forward by both guys is a testament to their skills as wrestlers. It's a shame that Kendrick wasn't allowed to show all this off on the main roster, and whether we'll ever see Ibushi in the WWE again is anybody's guess. If so though, they should definitely be paired up once more. Number 2, Bret Hart vs Steve Austin. You can pick any match between these two from the mid-90s, but one that gets overlooked a lot is their clash at Survivor Series from 1996. As well as the pre-hype, which could very well have been unfaultable, including Austin asking us to all put an S in front of Hitman, so we know what he thought about one Bret Hart, the match itself builds so well that by the end of it, you want to explode. It's like the ultimate roller coaster that begins with a tiny bump and ends with 45 loop-the-loops. A huge reason for this was when it went from a wrestling match to an all-out fight. With both Austin and Bret getting mad at the other, they just started smashing the crap out of each other, taking the wrestling holds from earlier on in the night and putting them to one side. The finish, where Bret reversed Austin's $1 million dream, was executed perfectly too, and this is just more proof that when you put these guys in a ring, they shine. Like the sun. Number 1, Brock Lesnar vs The Undertaker. Taking place at No Mercy 2002, Brock Lesnar and The Undertaker met up and said to each other, "Hey, you know this Hell in a Cell match we're gonna have? Why don't we try and end each other's lives?" So they did. Positively ugly from the off, the blood that flowed throughout this would never be allowed today, but that's kind of the point. This really feels like two men actually having a fight, and the decision to ignore high-flying bumps in favour of stiff shots and blows is a smart one. Lesnar and Taker also had no problem showing how much pain they were in, often howling out in agony. Some of the weapon shots are also horrendous, and that could be the reason WWE doesn't want to talk about it today. This is anything but PG, but it is quite the sight to behold.